What's the good that came out of PEA?
I mean, you say that like PEA doesn't exist anymore and we got to take the good for what it is, right? Like, at least on our end, like the good that came out of PEA was it created a really good dialogue with our players. Like we got more aligned into what they want and what we want, and we're able to tap more deeply into those what were misaligned values and kind of realign them. For me, like we exited that PEA situation with a really good relationship with our players. It wasn't destructive. It wasn't harmful. There wasn't a loss of trust. Like we're cool. So I mean, I also think that like PEA provoked some pretty important conversations around the Counter-Strike community about what they as fans and what they as players care about. And I think, and I'm sure that those conversations will continue as the months go on. And frankly, I think right now, like the structure of Counter-Strike tournaments and Counter-Strike leagues is really not great. Maybe part of the reason that the community isn't clamoring for change is because they don't know what a better system looks like. And I'm not saying that PEA would have been that better system, but that was at least our goal. And I think the same will happen with players as time goes on.
And to your credit, on Reddit extensively, you were responding to comments and you were very vocal and open about the whole process of it. So it helps.
Yeah, I mean, it's wishful thinking to think that in the modern era of the internet, you can ever do anything that other people aren't going to notice, right? It's not like we can just do the PEA thing and like, oh my God, it happened, but nobody really knew it was happening. Like that shouldn't be the goal anyway. I guess when in doubt, like, assume that the person you're talking to on the internet is a reasonable person with beliefs and value systems that roughly align with your own. And then do your best to explain why, from your perspective and their value system, what you're doing is the right move. And have empathy for them and hope that they'll have empathy for you. And that doesn't mean that you'll agree at the end of the day, but it at least means that you can kind of walk away from it treating each other like humans.
Do you think that Counter-Strike tournaments will consolidate or split off into different regions?
I mean, I think right now, honestly, it's hard to say. I'd say I think right now there's not a lot of consolidation happening just because it's such an open ecosystem. The barrier to entry to running a tournament is really small. And, you know, I know a lot of people come out of that PEA situation being like, oh, well, this just means ESL is going to control everything. And then suddenly, you know, ESL doesn't get the first major because it goes to E-League, and they don't get the second major because it goes to PGL, and everything's up in the air again. So I'm not prescriptive with that yet. Like, I have no idea what's going on. And frankly, after the PEA thing, I'm saving myself the headache. I'm not trying to figure it out. My team's going to play in the best tournaments in the world, and I'm going to watch them do it and cheer for them while it happens.
So what's happening with your Counter-Strike division, and what's been the learning curve for you for Counter-Strike?
I mean, our Counter-Strike division is very different from our other divisions in the way that every team is unique. Them being Brazilian brings a very different attitude and a very different outlook on the game, on life in general. Things are good with the Counter-Strike division, right? We had a great performance at IM Katowice, making top 4, and I think the only team we lost to in that tournament was FaZe, who ended up, you know, then going on to win Star Ladder, and they're currently ranked 2nd in the world, so give them props where they're due. That was followed up by a disappointing performance at Star Ladder, and I think our biggest issue as a team right now is figuring out consistency. How do we win when, you know, one player is playing below par or below average? Because the best teams in the world, a player can have an off day and they can still win the game. But for us right now, it feels like in order to really perform well at tournaments, we need all 5 to be on point every time. And part of that's going to be how well do we integrate our newest player, FNX, into our system. Part of that's going to be how does our in-game leader, Steel, develop a system that allows players to get a little sheltered and held up by their teammates when they're not performing as well. So I'm no expert in the game of Counter-Strike any more than I'm an expert in any of the games that we follow or that we have teams in. So ultimately, my trust's in the leaders of that team and the coach of that team, Raphael, to get that done.
For more CSGO interviews and analysis, subscribe to our channel. You can also find stats, discussions, and more on our website and mobile app at blitzesports.com.